Letting go is often misunderstood. People tend to associate it with giving up, being heartless, or abandoning others. But in truth, letting go is one of the most powerful, compassionate, and radical acts of self-love you can practice. It means recognizing that staying in certain relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, is costing you more than it's giving you. Many of us stay attached to people who diminish our light because we fear loss, rejection, or judgment. We cling to the memories, the what-ifs, the good times, hoping that the love we once felt will magically reappear. We tell ourselves that we can change them, heal them, or love them enough to become what we need. But in doing so, we ignore the red flags, silence our intuition, and abandon ourselves in the process. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't erase the connection you once had. What it means is that you have arrived at a place where your emotional safety, mental clarity, and personal growth matter more than holding on to someone who no longer values them. It means you're choosing to stop betraying your own needs for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable. True self-love isn't found in words or affirmations alone. It's in the decisions you make when it's time to protect your spirit, even if it hurts. Letting go is the decision to stop begging for love where it's withheld, to stop watering relationships that refuse to grow, and to stop showing up for people who disappear when you need them most. It's a conscious choice to reclaim your time, your energy, and your worth from people who never truly saw them to begin with. From a very young age, many of us are conditioned to believe that love must be earned, that we have to behave a certain way, meet certain expectations, or prove ourselves worthy of affection and connection. This mindset often leads us to form relationships where we equate love with struggle, pain, or performance. We begin to think that if we're just more patient, more giving, more forgiving, maybe then we'll be loved the way we desire. But real love isn't a transaction, and it certainly isn't supposed to hurt. When pain becomes the price we pay to stay connected, what we're experiencing is not love, it's emotional survival. We start tolerating mistreatment, emotional unavailability, or even manipulation because deep down we fear being alone. We accept the bare minimum, calling it enough, while secretly hoping for more. We confuse chaos with passion and inconsistency with intimacy. Over time, this belief that we must suffer to be loved becomes embedded in our identity, making it harder to walk away from what hurts us. This is especially true for those who grew up in environments where love was conditional, where affection was only given when you achieved, obeyed, or sacrificed. That early blueprint of love teaches you that to be loved, you must constantly strive, fix, give, and endure. So you keep working harder to maintain relationships that are slowly breaking you, because deep down, you think the more you suffer, the more worthy you'll become. But the truth is, you were always worthy, just as you are. You don't have to hurt to prove your love. You don't have to be the one who always bends so the relationship won't break. You don't have to prove your value by staying in situations that diminish your spirit. Real love sees you, respects you, supports you, and nurtures your soul without making you feel like you're constantly walking on emotional eggshells. One of the greatest misconceptions about boundaries is that they're a wall meant to keep others out. But boundaries aren't about shutting people out of your life. They're about creating space where you can exist safely and authentically within your relationships. They are not punishments. They are declarations of what you will and will not allow in your emotional, mental, and even spiritual life. And far from being restrictive, boundaries are the very thing that sets you free. Many people, especially those who are deeply empathetic or highly sensitive, struggle with setting boundaries. They worry about being perceived as cold, selfish, or difficult. They fear rejection, conflict, or disappointing others. So they say yes when they want to say no. They overextend themselves, suppress their needs, and stay silent in moments when their truth desperately needs a voice. But every time you abandon your boundaries to keep others comfortable, you send yourself a message that your needs matter less, that your feelings are negotiable, that your voice doesn't deserve to be heard. When you set boundaries, you're not just protecting your time or space, you're protecting your inner peace, your emotional energy, and your sense of self. You're drawing a clear line between what is nourishing and what is toxic, what is acceptable and what is not. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, not through threats or ultimatums, but through consistency, clarity, and self-respect. The truth is, people who truly care about you will honor your boundaries. They won't try to guilt you, manipulate you, or shame you into changing them. They will adapt. They will meet you with understanding. But those who are only invested in what they can take from you will resist your boundaries, not because they are unreasonable, but because your boundaries disrupt their access to your energy without accountability. And that's where your freedom lies, in recognizing that setting boundaries is not about controlling others. It's about taking control of how you show up in your own life. There comes a time in life when you realize that peace is not just a luxury, it is a necessity. In a world that constantly demands your energy, attention, and emotional labor, your inner peace becomes the foundation upon which everything else stands. Without it, and your thoughts become cluttered, your heart becomes heavy, and your life feels like a constant battle between survival and serenity. Yet so many of us trade our peace for people, situations, or environments that do not deserve access to our soul. We stay in relationships that leave us anxious, uncertain, or emotionally drained. We engage in arguments that serve no purpose but to disturb our clarity. We hold onto toxic connections out of guilt, fear, or obligation, even though every interaction chips away at our well-being. Peace isn't found in the absence of noise. It's found in the presence of alignment, when your mind, heart, and spirit are no longer in conflict. But maintaining that alignment means becoming fiercely protective of what you allow into your life. It means recognizing when your nervous system is constantly on edge, when your body feels heavy in someone's presence, or when your intuition is screaming that something isn't right. The truth is, not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not every conversation is worth your energy. Not every relationship deserves renewal. Protecting your peace means becoming selective with your time, deliberate with your presence, and intentional with your energy. It means giving yourself full permission to walk away from anything that robs you of your calm, no matter how familiar, comfortable, or emotionally tied it may feel. When you protect your peace, you are not being cold or distant. You are honoring the sacred parts that have been neglected, silenced, or worn down by the weight of emotional chaos. You are reclaiming your space from those who only know how to take but never give. You are choosing yourself in a world that often teaches you to choose others first. Peace is not passive. It is a choice you make over and over again, sometimes in silence, sometimes in solitude, but always in power. One of the most misunderstood truths in our emotional lives is the idea that vulnerability is a sign of weakness. We're taught from an early age to wear masks, to stay strong, to avoid being too emotional, and to never let others see us struggle. But what Brené Brown teaches us, and what life continues to prove, is that vulnerability is not the absence of strength. In fact, it is the purest expression of it. To be vulnerable is to allow yourself to be seen. Not the curated version of you, not the version that's always fine or doing great, but the real you, raw, honest, uncertain, afraid, and imperfect. Vulnerability is the courage it takes to speak your truth, even when your voice trembles, to love even when there's a chance you'll be hurt, to show up for yourself and others without knowing the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's emotional bravery. In the process of letting go of someone or something toxic, vulnerability becomes even more important. because letting go doesn't always come from a place of anger or bitterness. It often comes from a place of deep emotional clarity. It requires you to face your fears, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being loved again, the fear that you're making a mistake. It means you have to sit in your feelings, the grief, the confusion, the loss, and allow them to move through you instead of pretending you're unaffected. But here's the truth. It takes infinitely more strength to admit you're hurting than to pretend you're okay. It takes more courage to cry than to remain stoic. It takes more self-awareness to say, this isn't good for me, than to stay and suffer silently. Vulnerability is not about falling apart. It's about being honest enough with yourself to acknowledge what's broken and brave enough to begin the work of healing. And when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you give others permission to do the same. You create connection, authenticity, and trust, not just with others, but with yourself. You stop living behind emotional armor and start living from a place of truth where growth, transformation, and self-love can finally take root. There is a profound shift that happens when you stop chasing love from a place of emptiness and begin cultivating love from a place of wholeness. When you no longer look for someone to complete you, validate you, or fix what was broken inside of you, you start attracting relationships that reflect your healing, not your wounds. This is the quiet power of becoming whole. It transforms not only how you see yourself, but also who you allow into your life. Many people cling to toxic or one-sided relationships because they are afraid of the void, the silence, the loneliness, the stillness that follows after letting someone go. But that void is not a punishment. It is a sacred space where healing begins. It's where you learn to sit with your own heart, face your fears, and fall in love with your own presence. It's where you stop defining your worth through someone else's acceptance and start honoring the truth of who you are. When you become whole, you no longer tolerate inconsistent love, half-hearted effort, or emotional breadcrumbs. You no longer mistake being needed for being valued. You stop bending yourself to fit into places that weren't built for you. And you no longer beg for a seat at tables where your soul isn't fed. You begin to attract people who see you not as a project to fix, but as a person to honor. People who don't require you to shrink or sacrifice in order to keep their love. Wholeness means showing up for yourself so fully that you stop compromising your peace just to be chosen. It means loving yourself enough to walk away from connections that don't reciprocate, respect, or support your growth. It means believing deep down that you deserve the kind of love that meets you where you are, not the kind that waits for you to fall apart so it can feel needed. And as you walk further into your healing, your energy changes, your standards rise, your spirit speaks louder, the masks fall off, and authenticity becomes your compass. And when you're finally living in alignment with your worth, you'll notice something beautiful. The right people, the ones who are whole themselves, will begin to show up. Not because you were desperate to find them, but because you became someone who no longer settles for less than truth, depth, and mutual respect. So if you find yourself standing at the edge of letting go, trembling, unsure, afraid of what comes next, I want you to pause and remember this: choosing yourself is not selfish, it's sacred. Every time you walk away from what no longer honors you, you're walking toward a life that will. A life of peace, of purpose, of love that doesn't hurt, and connections that don't require you to abandon who you are to keep them. You were never meant to beg for love. You were never meant to prove your worth through suffering. You were meant to rise whole, free, and deeply rooted in your own power. Let go with grace, heal with intention, and love yourself enough to never settle again, because when you do that, you don't lose. You find yourself,